And welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. And joining me, of course, is my co-host Jimmy Lemke.
Good future, everybody, because you're in the future.
Yes, and you can find Jimmy on Twitter at PantherU, and you can follow the
and
podcast,
other things
and other things. If you were following last episode, and other things. And you can find the podcast on Twitter as well at Horizon Round RT. And this is the second half of our second annual Fan Battle Royale. So I'm going to go ahead and real quick, we're going to reintroduce everybody. We're going to start with Anthony over at Oakland.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be, somebody new to this, but I'm learning quickly, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right, Anthony Galino, of course. And then we got Chad Knodel over at Milwaukee.
Chad Knodel from Milwaukee. Second time doing the Battle Royale, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Then we got Jim Saro from Green Bay.
Thanks for having me on, and I'm going to do less Battle Royale and bad jokes this time and more basketball, I promise.
All right, awesome. Yeah. And then last but not least, of course, Ricky Redinger.
How we doing, guys?
All right. So we're gonna switch it up because last episode we talked a lot about kind of the online fan experience, including the apparently the really bad one I've just recently had that I'm probably
a lot
have to work
of
on
inside
therapy.
baseball. Let's start talking about outside basketball.
Yeah, outside basketball. Yeah. You guys don't need it. Yeah. Anyway, so one of the things I did want to bring up is kind of the end of Motor City Madness. So obviously, unfortunately, we weren't able to get. We were going to have Troy Corns from Northern Kentucky come on, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it on. But I guess in the years that in the years of Motor City Madness, and what's kind of everybody's takeaway from that, basically, now it's officially ended.
I think that I went to this last one, drove over, was a quick trip over, saw my team Green Bay lose, and then left after the women's team lost on Tuesday. I can say that I'm definitely going to miss the building. Like, Little Caesars Arena is amazing. It is a really good spot to go and spend a day watching basketball. But one thing I got from talking to people affiliated with the team is that because it was the last year, everybody knew it was the last year, like the experience for the student athletes, the teams, like they're staying out in the boondocks. They didn't get their little gift bags that they got in the past. You could just tell that it had run its course and that nobody that was putting it together was that interested in it anymore. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like a big deal. Like year one, they 3-1-3 in Olympia treated it like a big deal. And in year 4, it was just like, hey, let's get this thing over with and move on with our life.
Ah, okay. Well, that kind of makes sense. I mean, you're right. It did, well, I mean, when you even think about when they announced kind of the way it was structured this year, when they kind of announced they were only going to have the semifinals and the finals at Little Caesars Arena, when you saw that, you kind of thought, the writing was on the wall. I mean, it was just basically we're putting this together just because, and we're going to kind of wash our hands of it afterwards and then go after kind of the Big Ten or whatever you guys want to, whatever Olympia is going to be doing now. So, and that's too bad, but I mean, it is what it is, I guess.
I mean, look at this year, the way the format played out. There was a Pistons game on the Sunday before the tournament started, mm-hmm. and Kiss was the Wednesday after the tournament. The teams didn't even get to shoot around, from what I understand, in the arena. They were doing that over at UDM, I believe. So They were really scaled down in terms of time in the building. It was really an afterthought for Olympia this year, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because it was an afterthought to begin with. Everybody knew that shit was just about getting, being a staging spot for them to show conferences that they can put on basketball conference tournaments. They're trying to get the Big Ten tournament. They're trying to get any number of tournaments that can actually get them money at either the gate or from with whoever. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And anybody who didn't see through that from the beginning was just not trying or just doesn't understand the sports. And we got used. And we got used because we allowed it to happen.
Well, and the only reason we allowed it to happen was because Campy could sell ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, that happened after Oakland got in. Campy was all over from the beginning. Ray McCallum, when it first came in and Ray was the coach, like he didn't really sell it that much. Maybe it was because he kind of knew the writing was on the wall for his own job at that point, but he wasn't pushing when somebody would ask him like about the tournament, he'd be like, oh yeah, that's kind of nice. Like it was Campy's show. Campy's the one that's got the he's the one that's got the relationship with the people from Olympia. He's the one that's got he's the one that, like Chad says, could sell a ketchup popsicle to a lady in white gloves. Or maybe one of my favorite lines from Tommy Boy.
Yep.
The fact of the matter is that this was about getting something good for Oakland. Kind of sucked for Oakland that they could never do anything with it. But I mean, it was a good idea for him. Everybody else should have thought it was stupid. I mean, Cleveland State, fine because it's 3 hours away, but like,
thank you.
With it as it turned out, Jimmy,
I personally didn't have a problem with it. I mean, honestly, it's because it was the proximity to Cleveland, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I mean, I didn't have an issue with it.
I'd say this: as it turned out, we put our head up the stakes, or put our head up the cow's ass instead of asking the butcher. Did I get that Tommy Boy line right?
Close enough.
Close enough.
But you can get a good look at your butcher.
You can get a good look at the steak by looking up.
It's gotta be.
Take the butcher's.
It's gotta be your bull.
But with that said, if I could, Olympia wants content, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing Horizon League fans never embraced it to give a chance. Like if this thing was making money over a 4-day format for them and 10,000 people were showing up, it'd still be there. I mean, I agree with what Jimmy said about they want other content too. But if Horizon League would have made it work, Horizon League fans would have made it work. They're not going to get rid of the event if it would have been working. It wasn't working.
This is the problem. Is that anybody thought that it could have worked to begin with. The Horizon League is a fan base where just put it this way: Milwaukee at our peak, we get a couple hundred people to go to UIC or Loyola, which would be the closest team to us in my time in the Horizon League. Green Bay at its peak was sending like 200, 300 people down to Milwaukee. Valpo, take away Milwaukee because Valpo has a shitload of alumni in Milwaukee, but Valpo to UIC would at most take like 300, 400 people to a game at UIC. Go across the conference. Nobody is traveling for conference games.
Nobody's traveling to home games if you look at Cleveland.
And that's the other thing. Nobody goes to the damn home games either. So where is this idea that everybody's going to respond and make this neutral site tournament at this in Detroit? Which, by the way, like no offense to Detroit, to everybody in Detroit, and the time that I went to the Joe for I've taken the trips to Detroit to watch games at Callahan Hall, and then I went to a Joe for a Red Wings game, and then the time here for the Horizon League Championship in 2017. Like I've enjoyed my time there. But people in Milwaukee and Green Bay and Chicago and Indianapolis and Fairborn, Dayton, Ohio, and Cincinnati are not driving up to Detroit to spend a whole week, like or a 5-day weekend. Like, they're not doing that. Nobody's doing that.
Well, I just from a local standpoint here, I mean, I live in suburban Detroit, but we have seen, and you've all heard that, Detroit's uptick in all of our economy and everything, but there are a lot of really cool things that you can do down there. My wife and I still go down even during the winter, but the thing that I think was challenging is I don't know why the league and or Olympia didn't plan more. And again, we were local, so we never had the experience of staying down there. It seemed to me like that wasn't even offered or exposed to the fans, where it's a full experience where you go down.
Oh, dude, they had.
You go down to Greek Town, you could go over here to Midtown, and we have the mass transit that was put in, I think, a year and a half ago, where it takes you up and down Woodward. There were some cool things that I think.
Did you not see all like the travel promotion stuff from the Horizon League? When they were doing that first tournament, I heard all about Greektown. Okay. I heard all about the downtown, like the casino stuff. I heard all about those things.
Yeah,
Jimmy pulled a hamstring doing yoga at the.
Yeah,
pretty sure they had a yoga session one year.
I pulled something, that's for sure.
I mean, I'll tell you from a fan here at Oakland, I love the idea of the neutral site. And I know, again, we're newer to the league and many of you are not. So the home site thing was a little foreign to us. We came from the Summit where granted, when I was there as a student and I was in the pep band, we would take 24-hour bus trip down to Tulsa to Oral Roberts' home. And then we switched over and went to Sioux Falls. So we're talking 25, 30 hours that we were on a bus at times to get up to conference tournaments. Now we moved to the Horizon League. It's 5 hours, 6, 7, maybe or so to get up to Green Bay. It's all driving distance compared to what we were used to in the Summit. But I will say that as a student, and even now, some of my greatest memories as a fan are at the conference tournament. So the idea of a neutral site, even now moving to Indy, I'm telling a lot of the students that are graduating, like, get your friends and go down there because it's going to be a blast to feel that a little. We didn't get that locally, but it almost sounds like, if the Horizon League jumped to a neutral site, maybe Detroit and LCA was a little too big for considering what we just talked about with the number of fans we have and what we're doing. It's
certainly too big, and that's something else. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's something that college basketball fans need to start understanding is that as games are easier to see, actually, like, fuck ESPN Plus.
Yeah, that sucked.
Rest in peace, Horizon League Network.
Yeah,
what pissed me off is, like, okay, I have ESPN Plus, but then I also have to have ESPN3. I'm like, okay, awesome. Which was awesome. Which would have been fine if I didn't have DirecTV. Didn't have DirecTV Now at the time. Which
the point I'm getting at is that the more games are accessible, and while Horizon League Network was fantastic, most people were looking at it on their browsers and stuff. And now with Roku's and Chromecast, like, people are streaming to their televisions more.
Yeah.
So streaming has just become a lot more of a thing. There's things like Sling and Hulu and Netflix and all these things they're great. As that becomes more available, people are finding less of a reason to get up out of their seat and go down to the arena to watch a game. And so naturally college basketball is going to start losing fans a little bit, at least not losing the fans, but losing the people in the seats. So they got to do things to get people in the seats. And number two, like, the size of the building needs to be a real conversation piece. Like, at Milwaukee, when we were looking at building an arena, when Kuntz was AD, Kuntz was saying, I want to build like 8,000, 9,000 seats. And we're all telling him, like, dude, like 6,000 is probably perfect. The most fans this school's ever averaged at a game is like 5,300. Let's do more than that. Like let's do more than that for sure. But, like, you want to make it a tough ticket. And the part of the problem with the LCA or the Horizon League tournament in general is that it's not a tough ticket. It's not a tough ticket because fans who don't, there's not enough of them to go to their own home games, and not enough of them go to the away games. There are not a lot of fans out there who are going to go to a neutral site tournament for the Horizon League.
Hey,
And
Timmy,
how many of the fans though, really, like how many of the fans that went to the Horizon League tournament in Detroit, how many of them were visiting from other cities and spending the whole tournament there? I'd wager very few people were there from Friday night through Tuesday.
Yeah,
I would wager very, very, very few people. I'd say if you take away people who work for the conference, people who work for the schools and competitors, I would say that if there were 50, I would be astounded.
Well, in the Summit League, when we'd be down in Oklahoma, it would be all just ORU fans. Then when we head up to Sioux Falls, you'd have a good contingency of SDSU, NDSU, and then that would be about it. So even there, the big thing for them was they had so many local fans that I think that's why it's working so well for them in Sioux Falls.
Right. And the Horizon League, you mentioned how the Horizon League's a lot closer than the Summit League is overall. But the Summit League has a nucleus right along that eastern border with Minnesota, where you've got you got 4 fucking schools that are within a few hours drive of a conference,
and they're likely
pretty
adding another one. They're probably going to add Augustana, is what I understand, and Omaha's not far down south of that either. So they've got
really Augustana is considering it to move to Division I.
They approved a move to Division I. They're just waiting for a conference invite, and the Sanford people are bankrolling that like the rest of those programs. So you can imagine where it's going to end up.
Is Tom Billiter still the coach at Augustana or no?
Yes.
Yeah. He was a Chad, remember this? He was up for the job when Jeter got fired at Milwaukee, because Augustana won the Division II national title that year. And somebody was posing as an Augustana fan on our message boards. And they had a Twitter account. They were trying to feed me information about, Augustana's head coach is going to get hired at UW Milwaukee as you should go out there and report this. And I'm like, well, first off, because I've fully sided with the players on this whole feud with Amanda Braun, I'm not reporting anything right now. And number 2, it's kind of weird that you're coming to me and you're not going to journalists. So I did a little recon work, a little bit of intelligence gathering. And I found out that this person from Augustana College, who's a fan, Augustana in South Dakota, this Augustana fan in South Dakota has an IP address based in New Berlin, Wisconsin, which is about 15 minutes away from campus.
Oh, geez.
And I will not say who it is, but I have somebody. I have a buddy who works in tech, and a buddy of mine found the address for the IP address, found who was living there, and found that somebody who works for the university at UWM was posing as this Dak Del Sur, which is of course
Dak Del Sur. Yep.
DAK short in Dakota. Del Sur would be of the south, the south in Spanish. So somebody's doing this. The person who had the IP address is a Hispanic person who works for the university, who just so happens to have connections with the athletic director.
Dak Del Sur, is that going to be another one of your
just go to Panther U's website and just do the search bar DAKDELSUR and you will read it.
Dak
And
Del Sur.
it's fucking gold. They tried to feed me fake information to discredit me, and I'm just I'm not reporting anything.
Oh man, that's great.
Just to let you know why there's some of the animosity between me and certain athletic directors at my university. This is the kind of shit they would pull.
Was that before or after she blocked you on Twitter? I think it might have been after.
Hey, we're both blocked on Twitter for the record.
Yeah, I don't know. She what's funny is that like I follow her with Jimmy Lemke Twitter account, and she doesn't block that.
Yeah, the podcast.
Not yet. She doesn't.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
you know what? If it's gonna happen, it was gonna happen. I mean, yeah. I mean, come on. This is. But yeah, the So.
Hey, Bob. One thing I was thinking about the Horizon League tournament moving forward.
Yeah.
And to something Anthony was talking about with like all the other parts of it, and what Jimmy was talking about with like people aren't going to travel.
Yeah.
It is easier to watch on your 75-inch 4K TV in your house. However, one thing I think that the tournament was missing is access. Like I think of Missouri Valley. One of my friends is a Bradley alum, and he sent me a text message one morning. He's like, "Hey, having breakfast with Brian Wardle today." Because they do a team hotel and they have events with the school, with their alumni people, with the chancellor or president, with the athletic director, with
Motor City Madness.
But no, they were doing specific events for every school at a building, where there was access. You might say, okay, we had a hotel block at Motor City, or we had a hotel block at the Radisson, but there wasn't anything that would make you go, oh, if I go over there, I get something that I can't have sitting on my ass at home. And so I think I need to put all that together to say, what's the total experience? How do we get people to get up off their butt and drive 4, 5, 6 hours to Indianapolis? You need to give them something that they can't get at home.
I will say I am more likely to take a weekend off and go to a tournament in Indianapolis than I am to take a weekend off and go to a tournament in Detroit. Not because I think Detroit is terrible, but because I know Indianapolis is fun.
Lucky for you.
I went to Butler every year,
Well, lucky for you, they're only going to play on Monday and Tuesday in Indianapolis, and you don't even have to take the weekend off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, being a car salesman, Saturday is not actually my weekend. So, I could do it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Chad, let's book it. Let's do this.
There you go.
We'll go down there and talk shit to people.
If we qualify for the tournament, I'll go, but not unless we do.
Oh yeah, that's right. Since it's only going to be 4 damn teams, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be 4 damn teams. I'm just.
Well, even if it's 8 teams like it is now, we're not safe. So I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, we do next year's Fan Battle Royale on location.
I'm 100% for that. By the way.
I would be definitely down for that.
Yeah, and
I actually may be closer to Indianapolis next year than I am now.
I thought that was for sure happening.
What?
I thought your move was for sure happening.
Sorta. Yes, it is still happening though. Later, yeah, that's a whole other thing. So,
anyways, so
yeah, I'm gonna be very not within the next probably by the beginning of 2020. I will be a full blown Valparaisan. So that's.
Man, I feel bad for you.
Why am I the only one who likes that town? You guys suck. I don't know.
I actually like that town quite a bit, and this was one of my arguments when I was talking when they first did Motor City Madness. Was I was pointing out that like think about Valparaiso, like you go to Detroit and you're just some people in a city.
Yeah.
If it was in Valparaiso, and everybody was planning for Valpo, and everybody spent the weekend at Valpo.
Yeah,
you'd have
they wouldn't come back.
Well, the whole town would have been about the Horizon League tournament.
Oh, absolutely.
Part of the problem with the format, the format forever, and one of the reasons why the neutral site tournament didn't work was that you had a game on Tuesday, a Friday, Saturday, and then the Tuesday, which is what ESPN wanted. And ESPN, still wants that Tuesday championship game. So whatever. But the point I'm making is that you have by spreading it out so much, that was why you didn't have everybody planning their weekend around going to Valparaiso and spending the whole time there. That wasn't that was why people were doing it. People weren't avoiding it because they didn't want to go specifically to Valpo. They would go to see their team wherever they were if they were real fans. It was just a matter of having something that you could, plan for. And that's where the neutral site does have a benefit, but for the neutral site to have a benefit, it's got to be a game every day for your team.
Yeah.
It's got to be. So if they're going to be doing this tournament, it's going to be 8, and I swear to God, it better be 10 teams.
It better.
Or if whatever we add, well, however many teams we have in the Horizon League next year, that's how many teams should be in the motherfucking tournament.
Yep.
Yes.
Did any of you guys see those quotes from Commissioner Lacrone in Tony Paul's article? Like, he made it sound like they were going to stick with 8 teams, campus round for the first round, and then move to Indianapolis. I mean,
then
that's
what
at least.
The fuck is the point of having? What is the point of having a neutral site tournament if you're going to play?
Yep.
Think about it. You have 4 games in the first round: 8-1, 2-7, all those. 4 games in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
2 games in the second round, a championship game in the third round. There are more games at the campus sites than there are at the actual Horizon League tournament.
That's true.
Like venue. So what is the point of the tournament if you're not going to have a third day, that first day of 4 games in one day? That's the day where everybody spends the whole time around the arena and you get everybody mixing together. That is the point of a neutral site tournament. And John Lacrone, if you're listening, I know you hate my guts, and that's fine because the feeling is mutual. But you know what? If you're going to do 8 teams, or you're going to do 10 teams, or you're going to, add a Poughkeepsie State and the University of, Rio de Janeiro to the conference.
Oh, sorry, Poughkeepsie State.
If you're gonna do that, put them all in the tournament so everybody sets their time.
Yeah.
Because here, I'm from a team that sucked this year, that has sucked for a couple years. You want a fan like me to plan for the Horizon League tournament, to go and spend my time and take the time off ahead of time? You better make sure that I have a game to watch my team at the arena. Because
I agree entirely.
If there's no game, then what's the point of me going? What's the point of me planning? And if you have a 1 through 8, then you're not saying no. Hey, fan of number 9 and number 10 team, don't plan. You're saying, hey, everybody who's a fan of a team that could possibly finish 9 or 10, don't plan around here. So really, you're looking at teams 7 through 10 not having fans at the game because their fans aren't planning a whole trip, or at least they're not making it for the whole tournament. You need to make it so people want to go, and they want to go for maybe the whole thing, but you have to make it so everybody's got a reason to get there in the first place.
Yeah.
If Milwaukee blows out in the first round and we finish last in the conference in the regular season, but I know that I'm going to have a tournament, I will make sure that I will be there with my Horizon League flag waving right away next year. That is a promise that if you open it up to every team, that I will make sure that I'm there for the entire tournament, whether or not we lose in the first round. That's 1 fan. That's double the amount of fans that were there for the LCA for every game last year.
I mean, the nice thing about having everybody together is that for sure, like you said, that everybody's beginning to book their trip to down to Indy, so that it doesn't matter where your team falls. And to me, I think I would rather forego that home game in the first round to just still be able to book it regardless. And to know, too, that your women's team and your men's teams at least going to have 1 game down at Indy. And I would wonder, okay, LCA obviously trimmed it because they wanted less days. But with this new stadium, I would hope that we would have a little bit more wiggle room to throw 2 or 3 extra days on the calendar.
But it doesn't seem like it does, though. It sounds like they I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're going to – it just doesn't seem like they're going to do it. It sounds like they're still just going to do the 2 days.
Yeah,
which, I mean,
that was in the press release, but I think one of the things that we're missing here as fans, like I agree with Anthony, I agree with Jimmy. Like I'm going to be there regardless if Green Bay's playing. But one of the things that we have to think about, what happened this year with this format? The higher seeds won. The better teams got to the semifinals. The better teams got to the finals. And what does the league want? They want their best team in the end. They want their best team in the tournament. So I think the momentum to do what Jimmy's talking about and what Anthony's talking about isn't there at the Horizon League office, because they're looking at it going, great, we got our 1 and 2 seeds playing in the championship game, and finally, we got one of our best teams to the tournament.
Finally,
one out
after
of
4 years.
Yeah.
Like, I don't disagree.
The end result was still the same as it always is, though. So, I mean, does it really make that much of a difference?
Well, the strength of the conference can be built around the tournament. And that's part of the reason why guys like me got so fucking angry with it in the first place, is because the previous format was a big part of how the Horizon League got elevated to what it is. I don't need to go through it all, but Milwaukee's Sweet 16 may not have happened. They won their championship game in 05 by 1 point against Detroit in the title game. It's not a crazy idea to think that we would have lost and had a second straight year in the NIT in 2005. It's not a crazy idea.
So let me ask you this:
for Butler in 2000, maybe they would have lost a seed line had they lost in the tournament, and that could have hurt them, and they may have not gone to the Final Four, the national title game, twice, 2 years in a row. So I'm just saying the format was good because it allowed the success. This format will build. I mean, these programs got better partly because they could say, well, you win the conference tournament, you get to sleep in your own bed, you get to have your home tournament. You should see this place when there's a lot of people. And when you come back to it after all of this and all of the neutral site versus home site talk, the fact of the matter is that when we have the championship game at the Joe and then the LCA, every single year you were talking about cordoned off sections, you're talking about mostly sparse crowds, and you were talking about something that looked like shit on TV if you go through the entire arena. You go through the previous forever, and whether you're talking about Hinkle or you're talking about the Arc, or whether you're talking about in 2014 at the Nutter Center in Fairborn, or you're talking about any of the times at the what is now Panther Arena in Milwaukee, or even like the semifinals at Green Bay in 2014. Every single one of those places was packing the shit out of their building. Every single one of those places was packed, and it looked great on television. The Horizon League looked like it was a big-time conference. That was why you did the home site tournament. So if we're going to do a neutral site tournament, we better make sure that we're getting the conference better to the point where people want to go to the tournament, because there's a reason that Arch Madness works, is because the MVC is a conference with a lot of tradition. All of those schools have been in Division I for a lot longer than most of us. Mm-hmm. We got in Division I in 1990. You know, I mean, Cleveland State has not. Cleveland State. When did you guys get into Division I?
God, probably the late 70s, early 80s, probably.
We were in Division I for the 70s, then we dropped out and then came back in 90. But like, obviously Oakland's what, 97, 98, something like that. Yeah. You know, most of these schools are like that, where they were 80s or 90s. Mm-hmm. A couple of them are, Northern Kentucky. Was it 2008, 2009?
Yeah.
Jumping up to Division.
2012, I believe.
Yeah, it was really later than that. Yeah.
Okay. We don't. 2009 was when they built Bank of Kentucky, now BB&T Arena. The point I'm making is that the MVC is steeped in tradition. They've had fathers who could raise children to be fans of Bradley and UNI and Southern Illinois and all these schools where they have this tradition. So kids grow up fans of those schools. And because most of those MVC schools are the only show in town, most of them do very well for attendance compared to the rest of us. And there's a reason that Wright State does better in attendance than most of the Horizon League. It's because in Milwaukee, I can choose to go to a not a Brewer game during the basketball season, but I can choose to go to an Admirals game, or I can choose to go to a Bucks game, or I can choose to go to a concert that's of a band that's a nationally well-known band or something, or there's a lot of stuff to do in Milwaukee. There's a lot of stuff to do in Cleveland. There's a lot of stuff to do in most of the Horizon League cities, and in Dayton, Fairborn, you're second to UD, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So there's a reason that you've got that. There's a reason that Wright State averages more. So there's more fans that are connected strongly to the programs. So there's more fans who are willing to make that trip to a neutral site like an Arch Madness. For Milwaukee and for most of the Horizon League, the neutral site tournament just does not. It doesn't make sense. Do I want it to make sense? Absolutely. Do I love the idea of spending like a Friday night through a Tuesday night in a city like whether it be Indy or even Detroit? Yeah, I love the idea of doing that. But I know that it's not going to be the experience that I want it to be, because there ain't going to be anybody around the fucking Please.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and let me ask you this. I mean, I think we can all objectively agree the last couple of years of the Horizon League have not been great, top to bottom. It looks like it's getting better as the Horizon League actually gets better. I am of the opinion that I think the Horizon League as a whole, top to bottom, is going to be a much better league next year. As the teams within the Horizon League improve, is there a possibility that the league starts revisiting how they perceive or how they want the tournament structured? Because if you have a much better conference as a whole, top to bottom, they do themselves a disservice by the exclusivity of the current format.
I think Lacron is constantly looking at the format, and I think most of the time that's not good, and I think some of the times it is. So I would say yes, he's always going to be looking at changing the tournament if he thinks it's going to make it better.
Well, one of the things I think for the league, this year was a really good example. If we went back to the fan battle in the fall, I said the league was going to get better, and I think they did. However, what we saw this year is the bottom of the league lifted. We didn't have 5 teams in the RPI bottom 50. We got all of our teams in the top 300 of the net, but the top of the league is really soft right now. If you look at our best teams, Northern Kentucky and Wright State, they're coming in the Ken Palm between 95 and 117, and in the net between 115 and 150. Whereas like the SoCon, the Atlantic Sun, the OVC, they had 2 or 3 or 4 teams in some cases that were in that top 75 of the criteria. So we need the top of our league now to do its part, because the bottom, we're down to not having any. Well, sorry, Milwaukee, we're down to having no other shitty teams in our league.
Yeah, but I mean, and hell, I will say this. I think looking at the transfers that we have coming eligible, I think we're going to be a lot better team. We may still be like 8th or 9th or 10th, even 10th in the conference, but I think we're going to be a lot better. I think you hit the nail on the head that the top of the league needs to get better.
Yeah,
I think you hit a home run with that line. It's 100% accurate.
And where I feel confident, though, is that if you look at the first and second team all conference teams, 8 of the 10 players on that list, if I did my math right, are coming back. Like in the past, I felt like we were losing all of our best players all the time. Mm-hmm. And now we're at a spot where, okay, we got a little bit better. And most of those players, with the exception of like McDonald and Cohen, are the guys I was thinking of. Yeah. And Antoine Davis, if you read the rumors about from OU Grizz talk, but all of those guys are coming back, and there's an opportunity, hopefully, for the top of the league then to start to lift up and get into that top 75 in the different metrics.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say, there were a lot of Northern Kentucky fans who were like, get ready, get room on the Horizon League Mount Rushmore for Drew McDonald. And I'm sitting there thinking, when I was a senior, or like when I was a college, Drew McDonald wouldn't even be first team all Horizon League.
Yeah, I'd hold off on that a little bit.
This is my point.
That Horizon League Mount Rushmore is, that's steeped in there. There's plenty of names on there you want to put on
Northern Kentucky fans, you may hate me for saying this, but not only am I saying that Drew McDonald wouldn't be on the Horizon League Mount Rushmore of players, I'm saying that Drew McDonald wouldn't be in like the top 40 of that conversation or top 50 of that conversation. So this is indicative of a conference that has gotten a lot weaker at like overall. Yes, it's getting better, but that's because we were 27th in the RPI a couple of years ago. Like we had nowhere to go but up.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy, I thought Drew McDonald was James, whatever his name was, from South Dakota School of the Mines that you guys had like 10 years ago.
Jimmy Ayers?
I thought they were the same guy this whole time. I was like, how did he get 4 more years of eligibility?
Jeter used to, he told this joke to me once. He said that, or that wasn't Jeter, it was one of the assistants that said this joke that, he was known as Jimmy Ayers everywhere, and then he got here and there was already you, so we called him James. And I was like, you're just buttering me up. He's like, yeah, because you're a gullible idiot.
So, Well, yeah, but that's that's true. The whole, again, you look at that the All Horizon League teams, up to and including Jimmy, the Horizon Roundtable presents the third team. Got to throw that out there.
We should have a third team all conference. I mean,
that's right. So we're going to do this next year too. We're going to do since they're not going to do a third team, we'll do the third team, and this time maybe we'll be able to count. But yeah,
I love that idea. Let's do that as part of like the live Horizon Roundtable, like Battle Royale at the tournament. We can let's have fun with it. Yeah, I think this is great. We can pick all three teams. You have first team, second team, third team. We can pick an all defensive team, all name team. Skylar Quisenberry.
Oh my god! You look at the top players that have been recognized in the conference this last year, and you see it's a youth movement right now. I mean, for as much as I've gotten beaten the head about how young Cleveland State's team is, and they'll be better next year, and I don't doubt they will be better next year. I don't doubt that they won't be better next year. I think they will be. So is everybody else. And, I think realistically, you may, and we saw this year, we had such a log jam in the middle of the conference standings for so long during January and February. I don't see that going away. I see this conference being very competitive with each other. I think the big thing with the conference next year is not so much about how competitive the conference is during the conference schedule, which I think it's going to be. I have no doubt about that. I think the question is then going to be, what do they do outside of that that's going to, kind of bring everything kind of to the fore, because I think that's going to be the key. I think the competitiveness, I think, is there already within the conference. I think outside of the conference is going to be kind of the key part of that too, so that those top teams that are down in the nets, or that have been down in the net for a couple of years now, get to further climb their way up the net. And so there's a little bit more, the top is a little stronger than it has been over the past couple of years.
Well, I think the goal needs to be, from a conference standpoint, we got to get the conference back to where a 12 seed is the worst that our winner gets, because we're never going to see any wins in the tournament again until we get back to that point.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's,
so it's all about figuring out how to get to that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the key. That I think you're absolutely right. I think that's going to be the biggest part of that right there. And again, it's about that. It's about those top teams not only performing within conference but outside of the conference as well. I think that's going to be the big thing.
The thing that I keep coming to when I think about like the tournament specifically is I feel as though the Horizon League has this opportunity to use it for recruiting.
Yes.
Why did Loyola get into the Missouri Valley? They got better facilities. It wasn't their success. We all kicked the shit out of them for years.
It's true.
They were a punching bag in our conference. If they, for a very long time, they were basic, like they were barely what they were right this year. Like their team, like they're like eighth seed, 7th seed. Like that's usually where they were fitting.
Yeah.
So it wasn't success. Part of it was facilities. And the other part of it is where they were. The Missouri Valley's not in Chicago. They wanted to get into Chicago. And that was something that was told to me by a couple Horizon League coaches. One in Milwaukee, actually 3 Horizon League coaches. One in Milwaukee, one at another one of the school that's also now in the MVC, and then another assistant at one of the Ohio schools. I won't say which. But every one of those guys, when Loyola got into the Missouri Valley, I'm like, well, how the hell did they get in the conference? And I asked that of a lot of people, and every single one, all 3 of those guys said to me, like, well, look, The Missouri Valley wants to recruit Chicago. Loyola's in Chicago, and Loyola has potential, so they want a school that's going to get them into the Chicago recruiting class more and more. And to what I think is, where is our benefit of moving our conference tournament from Detroit to Indianapolis when we could be moving a conference tournament to Chicago and putting ourselves directly in that recruiting bed, which no other conference besides the Big Ten plays its conference tournament in Chicago. We're going to Indianapolis, where the Big Ten also plays its conference tournament every now and then. And a lot of conferences do a lot of things in Indianapolis because it's such a nice setup for tournaments, like postseasons and tournaments and congregation of sports. But a lot of that's centered around Conseco or Bankers Life Fieldhouse, and a lot of that's centered around basically like the downtown area, which is not where the Farmers Coliseum is. Farmers Coliseum's out by the State Fair. If I'm looking at trying to improve the Horizon League across the board, I look at going to the Sears Center outside Chicago, which is home to the Windy City Bulls in the G League and nothing else.
What about the All-State?
Yeah.
Well, the All-State, here's the thing about the All-State is that it's currently home to like DePaul's out of it, but now Northwestern's in it for a year. Obviously, that's not going to last. Like I said, that's not going to last. But All-State Arena seats 14,000.
Ooh.
Whereas Sears Center seats 6,000.
Oh, okay.
And it's about 10 minutes further away from downtown than Rosemont Horizon, the All-State Arena is. So there's really not. It's also out in almost the suburbs of Chicago, but it's close to the O'Hare Airport, like the All-State Arena is. So people who are flying in can get there easily. There's plenty of parking everywhere. There's plenty of things to do around the space. But really, you can go into a recruit's house in Chicago, which, by the way, is the biggest recruiting hotbed in the entire Midwest.
Yep.
It always has been. It always will be. It's a population center. The Chicago Public League, the North Shore, all those players that and every one of us can think of players from Chicago that have done big at our schools, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, hey Jimmy, I hate your idea because at Green Bay we thrive off of Chicago-based players. So you guys get your grubby hands off our recruits.
It's off of our
Go back to Columbus. Go back to Grand Rapids. You go get your players where you get them from. Okay, thank you.
This is my point. Is that you're not the only. I mean, you've done a lot there. Wardle did it. Kowalczyk did it. Now Darner's doing it, and that's fine. But there's enough that we could get 10 schools that could all benefit from recruiting Chicago players.
Yeah.
Because now we can all go, we would all be able to go into those living rooms and say, hey, Mom, Dad, not only are we playing at UIC every year, so you get to see that, but you would be able to get to see your kid in the conference championship and stay in your own bed at home.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about driving 5 hours or 4 hours to get to where you need to go. Like, you can stay in your own bed. This is a big deal to have family and friends to be able to see you play. Chicago and the Sears Center should have been a real, and maybe the All-State Arena is like a backup, but I think the All-State Arena is too big. I think 6,000 seats in Chicago. I think that if you get some pretty highly 2014, take this. Green Bay did a great job hosting the first couple rounds, the quarterfinals and semifinals, and obviously Wright State did a great job in Dayton for the tournament, and we loved it. Chad and I loved that tournament for just the.
I bet you guys love that one.
The ambiance, the atmosphere.
Hey,
we loved
met
it.
Mike McCarthy in Green Bay.
Yeah, we did, and we had the most awkward 20 seconds with Mike McCarthy ever.
Yep.
We're like, hey, how's the team looking next year? He's like, pretty good, and then we're like, okay. And then we stood there for 10 seconds. We're like, okay, bye, coach. It was pretty bad.
We were drunk though, so we
were blitzed. Was that? Yeah, that was the semifinal. So, anyways, think of that 2014 tournament.
Mm-hmm.
If that had been played at a neutral site at the Sears Center in Chicago, Kiefer Sykes is from Chicago. does Kiefer Sykes not count for a few hundred people on his own coming to see him in the conference tournament? Think of every player that you've had on your teams that's come from Chicago. All of those guys would have had a lot of people. I mean, it would have been like a Chicago party. Honestly, I don't know why the league office is in Indianapolis anymore. It should be in Chicago. And I understand that the conference tournament's going to Indianapolis because John LeCrone doesn't want to pay for hotel rooms for his staffers. Like that's, I mean, isn't it obvious that why they would do that? Why they would fly into the face of their own set rules of not having the home arena of a team in the conference as a a potential home site for the tournament?
Well, one of the things
That's
about
why
that
they
though,
did it. It's to save cash.
well, but there's that, and now that we know who else bid on this thing, it actually ended up being probably the best alternative. I mean, the other finalists were Fort Wayne and Grand Rapids. That's really not that great.
Well, right, but if Northern Kentucky, like they said, if Butoff said, if they knew that they could have put the BB&T Arena on there, that would have been the better tournament.
So
in any case, my point is that the Sears Center in Chicago gives you an opportunity to build the strength of the conference through recruiting, because you can say, hey, not only are we playing one game there every year, we may be playing as many as 5 games there in a conference tournament setting. So just throw it out there.
So, keep that in mind for 2023 because that's the earliest they're going to even be able to do anything with this. So, all right. So, with that, we'll go ahead and close out this second part of the second annual Fan Battle Royale, gentlemen. I thank you all for participating in this. We had a good time. Had a lot of great discussion here. And that's going to wrap it up for us. As always, you can find episodes of the Horizon Roundtable at sportshacks.com, HAX.com. And you can find us wherever podcasts are available. And, of course, you can find us on your Amazon or Google devices. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. And thank you all for listening.